Hey everyone, Courtney here, your Plaid Clad librarian, and today we are going to be making some sort of like crafty, artsy project, and it's all about like foil embossing. It's super easy to do, and it turns out to be a really cool product. So all you're gonna need is something like cardboard, some tin foil, yarn, glue, and Sharpies are the big ones. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take cardboard and we're going to draw a picture on it. It does not matter what side of the cardboard you use or, what color it is. This is all going to be covered up in tin foil anyway, so it really doesn't matter. And specifically, because it's getting covered up in tin foil, it really does not matter how good your picture looks at this point. I'm going to just grab one of my Sharpies and I'm going to draw a quick little doodle, and I'm specifically trying not to make something that has a lot of details. I'm looking for something that has some bigger shapes in it because we're going to be outlining it in yarn. Yeah, I know that sounds weird, and it does sound weird, but you'll see how that works there. Yeah, that's fine for me. Oh, maybe I'll give him some stripes. I'm having a bee thing lately. Now, his little head does have a bit of a cross-section there, but that's not that big of a deal because, like I said, this is going to be covered up in some tin foil. We are going to now outline this in yarn. I know that sounds strange, and frankly, it is a bit strange. How this will work is that we are going to take some glue, and try not to use too much glue. You just need enough glue to tack down the yarn. So I'm going to take one shape at a time, and I'm going to trace it out in the glue. And then I'm going to take some yarn and I'm going to lay it on the glue, just like so. There we go. And you're going to do that for every one of your lines, at least all of the lines that you want to show up on your finished picture. Okay, that's now done. Having now finished, I can honestly say that I very much suggest keeping your details to a minimum. Even doing these little wings was a bit of a challenge, so just keep that under consideration if you're looking for an easier project to do. Now, I definitely have a lot of glue spill over, not too bad, but if I wanted to, I can take like a Q-tip and I can clean up that glue. It'll help later on make a more clean line, but I'm just gonna be a little bit lazy, I'm not gonna lie. I'm just gonna leave it there. I am now going to let this sit and dry. I think I'm gonna go eat lunch. When I come back, this should be completely dry and we'll be able to get to the next step. If you're gonna be impatient and you cannot wait for it to be completely dry, that's perfectly fine. Just at least wait until it's kind of tacky so that the yarn won't move around at all, okay? Because the next step, what we're going to be doing after this, is we're going to be pressing the foil on top of this, and we're going to be getting into all these little nooks and crannies created in the spaces in between the yarn. And if your yarn moves around, that's not going to be very easy to do. So make sure that it's at least secure. All right, about 45 minutes has passed and glue is mostly dry. Like I said, you can just have it be as tacky and that's perfectly fine. So I'm gonna put this to the side and we're gonna move on to our next step. This is the foil process. What we are going to ultimately do is we're going to be pressing the foil on top of here. And you have several different options when it comes down to this. You can either crinkle up your foil so that when it's pressed onto your picture, it has a more like crinkly, sort of ripply effect to it, and that can kind of give it some cool textures. Or if you want something that's a bit more smooth and shiny, you can use a piece of foil that's a lot smoother as well. I want to see how that works, so I'm going to actually cut off this foil that has been wrinkled up. Not going to use that. And instead I'm going to use this nice smooth foil. Now, foil has a shiny side and a dull side, and we're going to start off by having the dull side be on top. I'm going to quickly draw around the edges just so we can get the size of our board. There you go. I have a glue stick here. Like I said, we might need some extra supplies. We need a glue stick. Didn't get that memo right at the beginning. I'm going to glue this whole section. I'm just gonna do lots and lots of glue on it. Make sure it's completely covered. I also suggest that you start on one side of your square or your shape and move to the other, because if you go back and forth, it'll snag the foil and it'll make it bunch up and maybe even tear. And that's not really what we're going for. So I'm gonna add a whole bunch of glue. You wanna make sure there's so much on there. And what we'll do next is take our picture, flip it over so that the yarn is face down and going towards the glue. You're gonna push down fairly lightly, just so you know that it's gonna get secure and stick. So we'll flip it over. And this part, you can use your fingers or really whatever tool you have, and we're going to press down on the foil and get it to stick in there really well. I'm actually going to use the back end of the Sharpie, and I'm going to use that to press down on the foil because I have longer nails and I don't want to rip up the foil. So there's spaces in between the yarn where the foil can press down and get connected onto the cardboard, and that's what we're looking to do. So you're looking to fit, like, kind of fill in all those blank spaces. This is also a bit of memory practice because I don't necessarily remember where all the shapes are. Uh-oh. See that? I pressed too hard and I tore that part of the foil. So, pro tip, be careful when you're pressing down. Make sure that you don't tear your foil, otherwise you're going to ruin your project. Since this is really just an experiment for me, I'm just going to keep on going. It's not that big of a deal. I wonder if there's ways where I can kind of cover it up later on. A bit of a bummer that it's not going to be completely perfect, but that's just kind of how art goes. Sometimes art has success when it's, you know, messed up a bit. You never know exactly what you're going to be making and how the end result is going to be. And sometimes the prettiest things are those things that have mistakes in them. They're just far more interesting. If everybody produced perfect art, there wouldn't be anything different and unique about the world at all. So I am not heartbroken about it at all. Instead, I'm just going to keep on going, and we're going to see what happens at the end of all of this. Alright, once you have everything kind of pressed down, this is where you get the embossed textures of your picture. I'm actually going to cut off some of the excess on the sides because I don't need it. Now that I've trimmed it, I'm going to take more glue and I'm going to glue around the edges of the foil. And then fold your foil up into the back so that it stays nice and secure and it's not going to come off your picture. There we go. If, for instance, you don't have a glue stick, that's perfectly fine. You can actually use just normal school glue, and same thing for this front part where we're trying to glue down the foil onto the yarn. You could have just taken some glue and spread it along the entirety of this picture over the yarn and on the cardboard and everything, and then when you put on the foil, it would stick to the glue on the cardboard and keep that secured. I did not do the best embossing job here. I don't think I used enough glue, so I really suggest that you just pile that glue on there. But you do have a general shape of what picture I have going on right now, and this is the fun bit. Get some Sharpies and start coloring things in. You're going to want to try and color in the spaces in between where the yarn is. If you have a situation like mine, you might want to be very careful when you color in, otherwise your foil is going to be tearing even more, and that is not that great. Okay, this is kind of embarrassing. because it's not the greatest thing ever. I have so many spots where the foil didn't stick or go down all the way and it cracked and ripped. And yeah, but like I said, this is just an experiment for me. I'm not looking for perfection on this one. I was just trying to see how this works and kind of introduce you to it. Some things that I learned, these areas of really big details, or rather finer details. So like I have the stripes of the bees here and this little stinger and this squiggly in the middle. Those did not turn out so well. They were really hard to kind of press the foil down inside, and they ended up ripping the most. And I also noticed that if I was coloring in too heavily, the tip of the Sharpie would snag on the foil and rip it as well. And I think a part of that would have been solved if I had used enough glue, but it was also kind of good to know that you have to be careful even when you're coloring. So a lot could be improved with this, but there's a lot of potential with this type of project to begin with. For example, Agata, who is another teen librarian and significantly better skilled at this than me, she made these beautiful things. So she did the yarn method for this one, and you can actually kind of open it up and you can see the yarn that she used. And she did not glue it down, I don't think, because I was able to do that really easily. But her details were very, very big. She used huge areas and very steady lines with everything, and she was able to separate those sections out and press them down much better so that there was a lot of area where she could color. And because she used all of these colors, it just stands out and makes this look amazing, don't you think? There's also this one. She did not use yarn for underneath this. Instead, she took cardboard and wrapped it in tin foil, and then she took like a ballpoint pen and she drew a picture in there. And I'm not sure if you can necessarily see it, but it does give it some steady lines. And with this method, she was able to use a lot of more fine details. So you can see how the balloons have little ties and all these squiggly lines and everything. And what's really cool is that this, when she colored it, it gives the picture kind of this cool metallic shifting look to it, and that's just really nice. This one also has it. They're just nice and shiny and just very fun to see and do. And so if you don't have yarn, just getting some tin foil, wrapping it in some cardboard, and drawing on it can give you some really cool textures that you can play around with and have fun with doing. And then coloring on tin foil, who knew how good that would look? I mean, you wouldn't know it by looking at mine, but these look amazing. Hopefully your tinfoil art does turn out significantly better than this. Hopefully yours turns out much like Agata's. If you would like to share your art, your little craftiness, please send in pictures or videos, however you like. So you can send them to any of our socials, and we would love to see them and be able to share them however you are comfortable with doing so. If anything, I hope you have something fun that you can now do and something new that you might not have thought of before. It's always kind of cool working with different types of medium and different types of materials. You never know what's going to come out of those sorts of things, so it just always makes it a lot more fun, don't you think? All right, well, that is all for today, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and see you all soon. Bye.